Thanks for sitting down with me in this office today. My name's Dylan. I am the owner here at Dylan's Auto Body and Performance Mods. Okay. So, basically, it sounds like you had just some basic maintenance that needed to be done, and at the same time, you also wanted to kind of set up a performance plan. Yeah, okay. Here is I saw you had a Mustang, so here's a catalog I can give you. You could just sort of look through there. Do you have any idea of the direction you want to take with your car? Okay. So, basically, we're just going to do, for today, we're just going to do a basic, the oil change and tire rotation that you wanted. Just so that way, because I know you said it was a little bit overdue. And then I have a catalog of my own. We can sort of walk through this together. And like I said, we don't have to get the entire game plan down today. But we can sort of just lay down like the general direction you want to go. How's that sound? Okay, good. Let's see here. Okay, yeah. So the first thing that we're going to come up with is wheels. So I know you have the standard 17-inch rims on the car now. However, let's see if there's a picture that can... these pictures don't really do it justice, but you could see how there's a really big tire gap in the car. It looks... it doesn't exactly look the best. So one of the things we can do is you'll have your fenders, we can roll those so you can get 18, 19-inch rims in there. It fits that wheel well very nicely. Let me see if there's even the cover car. You can see in the back how much tighter of how much better that tire fits that wheel well. And even up front there, there's a very tiny gap. So, look through your catalog. Okay, so we got some different rim options to pick from. Let me see if there's anything that really sticks out. You could do this kind of styled rim. Are you looking for more of a chrome rim or like just a black rim? Okay. Let's see. They even have the GT500 style if you're into that. There's a classic. It's got the chrome. They call these deep dish because they indent themselves a little bit in the front and the back. So I would recommend 18 inches. That way, the problem with 19 and then some people even do 20 inches is you got to be spot on. It can rub. You have a quad shock there that it can rub, and there's a lot of things that can tear up your tire or other parts of the rear. So I'd recommend 18 Did you say you wanted the chrome or the black? Okay. So, how about we go with these ones here? The deep dish chrome. I think that would look really good. Okay. So we got that. Okay, the exterior. While we're here, let's see here. How's the paint job look on it? Does it need any kind of paint corrections or anything? Or a new clear coat? Okay. Nothing really needs to be, you don't need like a whole new bumper or anything. Okay. Let's see here. I don't want to get too... I mean, like, you could even go as far as to have, like, the side markers on your car blacked out. I wouldn't get too... I think me and the direction I try to steer my clients is we'll try to keep it... We don't want to, I guess, bubba it out. We don't want to rice it out, yeah. I try to keep things... We like performance mods. We like to upgrade. We want to do those things. But at the same time, we don't want to overdo it. So, like, I'd recommend keeping, like, the stock paint job on the outside. Or if you wanted to change colors, that's fine. But at the same time, I wouldn't overdo it with like a bunch of stickers down the side and stickers on the hood and then a bunch of stickers on the like it just like even something simple like the word Mustang on the back here, putting like the black indents in that does look good. The word's already there, the Mustang's already in your bumper, so you might as well make that pop. Me personally, but I mean, it's your car. You can go whichever direction you want. See, like this picture here, they've done a black fuel door. They did this back trunk lid. They did this black piece down here. They did the smoke tail lights. I just think that it starts to look tacky. And again, these things are not necessarily cheap. You know, to each their own. Nothing. Any of your mirrors or windows not working? Okay. And how's the cowl vent grill on these cars tends to crack a lot. So especially if they're outside in the winter time. Yeah, they tend to crack. So that's one of the common pieces on these cars that that can break, and it looks a little trashy. Let me see here. This is the one I recommend with your car. So the problem is, do we have the stock ones? The stock headlights is very yellow. They're very dim, and they don't really do you any justice, like driving at night. I know we've had a lot of people come in and say they can't see, or there'll be a big truck that comes by with LED lights, and you can't see for the life of you. So what I recommend is these are the LED halos. So they have two halo lights, and then they got a couple of LEDs going down the side there. So not only does it look a lot better than your existing lights, but at the same time it has LEDs now, so it performs a lot better. we're just getting into, I'm just trying to figure out some of the basic stuff before we get into the engine modifications. Yeah, nothing here is too crazy. Okay, let's see. Well, while we're on the topic, I know you just have the factory disc and rotors for your brakes. We do offer the slotted discs and rotors, and then we even have the package where this is the one I recommend. So you get, it's not crazy expensive like Brembo brakes, but at the same time it gives you, you get the slots, so you'll get brand new disc and rotors. You get the red calipers that are also have some performance benefit to it. So you just get, for a very reasonable price, you get an entire new brake system that also offers a little bit of performance braking. Now, so here's two ways we can do this. We can do for the suspension, so you'll have the bigger wheels, but you can also lower the car sort of onto those wheels. So what I can do is we could do better shocks and struts. We can do just lowering springs, so we'll keep your factory shocks and then struts in the front, and then all that's lowering is the springs a little smaller. We can do coilover kit. If you're unfamiliar, basically, like I said, there's a shock, a strut. So this just puts the spring over the strut in the front. Okay, and then there's another option, not in this book, that's a little pricier. You can do either air ride or hydraulics. Basically, the thing with like the coilover, for example, is there's a little collar down here, and what we have to do is we will raise the car up, take the wheels off, and then we have to adjust the height. You can adjust the height with coilovers, but we have to raise it, take the wheel off, twist the collar to raise it or lower it, and then once we do an alignment and get it sort of straightened out, we'll put the wheels back on it, and that's your ride height. With air ride, for example, there will be a little like a touch screen in your car, and if you want to raise up any of the four corners or lower them, it's just a button touch. So the car is already, it's got the electronics for it. Let's say another problem is like with the coilovers, let's say you're low, but you're trying to get up, maybe there's like an inclined road you're trying to get up. When you get to that top, you could potentially scrape your undercarriage. With air ride, one of the things is that you're starting to go up, you realize, hey, this could be a tight fit. It's not a big deal. You just press some buttons in your car and the suspension will raise, so you won't scrape anything. Yeah. Like I said, it is a little more money, but you can, again, adjust your ride height. You can even set it so that when the car turns on, it will go to a specific height for driving, and then when the car turns off, it can go all the way down, or it can go to whatever you want it to be. Okay, it's just some food for thought. I mean, if we're going to go ahead with the suspension, you might as well do, there's sets of upper and lower control arms for your rear. Just, especially if you're lowering it, it sort of really tightens everything up. And a lot of for the bushings and these lower control arms, especially since your car's yeah, they can start to go bad after a while. So, just a new set of lower control arms is always recommended. Okay, while we're on the topic, if you do the coilover kit, it comes with one. If you want to go with a different direction, I'd recommend a caster camber plate, like up top here. You'll see that there is a whole mess of screws up top. Basically what that does is, without having to physically move the entire strut in the front, you can simply just turn. I don't know if these are just hex nuts, but you just simply turn the hex nut and it can adjust the caster and the camber. So how far out your wheel is, the angle of your wheel, that sort of thing. Yeah. So it's not too much money, and it's always nice, especially if you go take it to get an alignment. This kit right here, it really helps out. Alright, so we're going to get into it now. Alright, so exhaust. You have a nice car, and the factory exhaust really hinders its performance and also the sound. So with your car in particular, from the engine, you have headers that come off the engine. You'll have a mid-pipe that has your catalytic converters. That's what makes it green for like the amount of smog that comes through it. And then you have a catback system that has your big rusty muffler on it. So basically with your car, we'll start all the way up front at the headers and kind of work our way back. What kind of sound are you looking to get out of it? Okay. And at the same time, do you want to keep this car street legal? And what I mean by that is, we can get this car pretty loud and still get it to pass inspection without. There's things you can do in the computer and bypasses and stuff, but if you don't want to fool with all that, I can make this car louder by keeping the catalytic converters, keeping the muffler, but I can also, there's things we can do. Okay. So, starting off up front, your header, it's called a stock manifold on your car. It's very small. So what we can do is there's shorty headers, so they're a little bit longer than the stock ones, but again, these will pass inspection no problem. There's long tube headers like these. It depends on the state you live in and some other factors. What we can do is this is the best sound and performance upgrade, but you start to run the problem of your engine might run a little rich and fail a smog test if your state has that. So what I recommend is, if we're going with that, then on the mid-pipe, we can either weld in or keep your catalytic converters. That way you get the performance of a long tube, but at the same time you should theoretically still pass inspection. A lot of states it's illegal to have long tubes. However, like I said, as long as you have the catalytic converter, basically they they'd have to look under the car to tell it's a long tube, and most of the time they're not going to do that. So you should have no problem passing. Okay. Just some food for thought. Now we're going to get into the mid-pipes. Basically, the thing I recommend is, so depending on whether you go with a long tube setup or a shorty setup, then the mid-pipe effect kind of affects that. So here we have, this one's got 4 catalytic converters on there. I'd recommend going down to 2. You'll still pass inspection, but you won't be hindered by 4 catalytic converters. Yeah. This one right here is the one I'm going to recommend. So it's currently set up, so if you go with a shorty header, it's got plenty of tube length. The thing is, the long tubes are so much longer that it actually goes down into what would be the mid-pipe. So what I recommend is something like this, where there's 2 hangers here. They can actually come off, removing these pipes here, and they'll leave you with that. So that's just enough. It's got the catalytic converters and your mid-pipe. So if you go with shorties, this one works. If you go with long tubes, this one also still works. Alrighty. And then from the mid-pipe, we have what we call the catback. Here's a good example. Goes from about middle of the car over the rear tire or the axle, and then out the back here, out the back of the car. Now what you'll notice on this car is it doesn't have these big mufflers, these big clunky mufflers that really hinder performance as well as sound. So what I recommend is something like this, where it has a resonator. So there's something still, here's just the resonators. So it has something still there in place of the muffler, but at the same time, a lot of states, to include this one, will allow resonator. If you muffler delete to a resonator, that's perfectly legal, and it helps with the sound. Like I was saying, you can go no muffler, just tube, and then no cats, just tube. That will get you the best performance and the best sound. You'll be very loud, but you will not pass inspection unless you do some sort of back-end dealings, or there's things you can do to your ECU to sort of delete codes. It's a mess. Alright, we're going to get into starting with the engine. I'd recommend a cold air intake, and we can even install some of these today while you're here. The factory cold air intake is very restrictive. So the air that's coming into the engine, it's just not a lot. So by doing this, you have a much bigger filter on the end that's sucking in a lot more air for your engine. Actually, trust me, it's not a whole lot, but there is a little bit of horsepower increase by like a couple. Yeah, I guess really it depends on where you want to go. I'd recommend you're here at a performance shop, and I know the price tag you said you're comfortable spending. I'd recommend, we could do like little bolt-ons, like a bigger throttle body, but you can spend a lot of money with this car in bolt-ons. And what we mean by that is it's just basic. You take one part off, like the cold air intake, and put another one on. You can spend a lot of money doing that, and this car barely gets much horsepower. For the same price, you can boost it. If you're familiar, we can either supercharge or turbocharge it, make boost, and make way more horsepower with around the same price as you would by replacing all these little things. Some food for thought. One of the things you can do is a Pro Charger. It's just one big, it's technically a supercharger unit. Basically what it does, in very simple terms, is it spins and pushes a lot of air through the engine. You have a fuel-air ratio, so the more fuel and the more air being pushed through makes more power. In the very simplest of terms. So, supercharging is usually cheaper. There's even like just a cheap Vortec kit. If you want to, there's also we can do a root style supercharger. So it would actually go on top here over your throttle body and your intake. These ones are this sort of Pro Charger kit. There's plenty of room in the engine for it already, so that's the way I recommend going. If you want to make big power, I'd recommend down here there's a twin turbo kit. So basically you have two turbos really pushing air through that engine, and with that setup we'll have to upgrade the engine components a little more to be able to sustain that kind of power. Your car tends to top out around like 400 to 450 horsepower. After that, you'll start to see like the block cracking and things in the engine will start damaging itself. So we'll have to upgrade some stuff in the engine, but with a twin turbo kit like this one, we can easily see over 1,000 horsepower if we put our minds to it. And again, food for thought. If you really want, you could do this twin turbo kit. It works with a root style supercharger. So what you would have, here's your engine. You'd have your supercharger up here. The turbos are down here in the bumper. And you could do what we call twin charge. So basically, there's two forms of boost going in the engine. With this car, they say theoretically it can make about 1,600 horsepower. But you really have to build that engine very well. And then the problem you're going to run into is the rest of the car. So like the transmission, the drive shaft, there's a lot of things that are not going to support that kind of horsepower. So you're going to have to upgrade a lot more. Some food for thought, but I would definitely, one way or the other, boost the car. You'll see a lot. Easily 100 to 200 horsepower increase. And it just, I highly recommend. Okay. The other thing I'd recommend would be a handheld tuner. You could just put this one on the window. So basically, if you do any of these real engine upgrades, you're going to have to go get it dyno tuned. We can do that here. If you like, basically we put it on a machine. When we program the ECU to support your mods that you've just done. That way we can figure out the best possible air to fuel ratio, the best possible settings for your ECU, if you will, without damaging the car. So we can squeeze every last horsepower out without causing damage to it. And the nice thing with the handheld tuner is we can put different tunes on there. So if you want like the different fuels, so if you want maybe like to be really performancy, you can do a 93 octane tune, or even an E85 if you can find that. You can do, maybe you just want to like daily drive it, and you don't want like, you want it to be more just daily drivable. You don't want it to be crazy and obnoxious. We can do like an 87 tune. We could do all types of tunes on there, and just depending on what you're looking for. And with this, you just simply select the tune that you want. It takes about 5 minutes to flash your ECU in the car, and then you're good to go. And they also tell you, they tell you the basic RPM, your volts, the boost you're putting out with your turbos, your coolant temp. You can get it to tell you actual things about the car. So that's one I definitely would recommend getting. I would definitely recommend, so if we're putting a lot more air into the car, you're going to have to put a lot more fuel in it. So I would definitely recommend getting bigger fuel injectors. That way it's injecting a lot more fuel to keep up with the more air we're putting through it. Like I said, this is going to be an overtime thing. I'm not about to just slap a twin turbo on your car and send you on your way. The other thing, I'd recommend getting a better camshafts. Basically, one of the noticeable things you'll notice is the idle sound. So when you just start your car up and it's idling, it will be significantly louder. But there's also some performance to it. But yeah, just the idle. Even with all that exhaust work that we're gonna do, the idle doesn't get louder. It'll make it so when you're actually on the gas, it'll sound a lot louder. But this makes the idle louder as well. Don't really need that. I mean, if you want to, I can even give you like a short throw shifter. That way you don't have to sit there and really put it into gear. You can just sort of, it's a lot shorter to shift the gears. And I guess that's where we'll stop today. Like I said, just some food for thought for today's visit. Just see sort of the direction you want to take it. But with things like a new exhaust, if we boost your car, bigger wheels, better suspension, I mean, your car will be very nice to drive. So the performance will increase, the smoothness of the ride quality will increase, and you'll just have an overall more fun time with your car. So, like I said, today, we just did the basic maintenance on it, nothing too major, and figure out, you can take the book home if you'd like, figure out exactly what you're looking for, and call me back, and then we can set up, the how and the when to install all this. So, I greatly appreciate meeting you. It was nice meeting you too, and I certainly hope you'll come back shortly.